Hi, I'm Dean Foley, and you're listening to the Indigipreneur Podcast, a show about Indigenous entrepreneurs, innovators, and leaders, and their inspiring stories.
It's called the Could Have Been tribe. And it could have been this, could have been that, and could have been whatever. We all know someone from the Could Have Been tribe, Russ.
On today's show, we have the inspiring Jesse T. Martin. Jesse is a Eora man who now lives in Cairns and is the founder of the Streets Movement organisation. He strives for social change by fighting for a hand up rather than a handout. What was it like growing up in Cairns? Were there a lot of opportunities? How did you decide to get into what you're doing now, get into business and entrepreneurship to help out?
Oh, Cairns is a beautiful place, don't get me wrong. Scenic-wise, it is an absolutely marvellous place. In terms of opportunity, however, that's another story. Obviously, being in a regional area, you're a long way from Brisbane, let's just say that. So, unfortunately, I think it's overlooked quite a lot of the time in terms of any sort of major infrastructure projects or opportunities around, investment or even I'd say, well, we have two universities up here now, which is fantastic. So back before, when I was younger, I think they used to run the university out of the TAFE. So, I mean, even that's, been somewhat a bit slower than the rest of the state to develop. But in saying that, there's more and more opportunities every day that are coming online, which is fantastic. But in saying that, we have a very, very long way to go, particularly considering we are a major international hub, a major hub for tourism. But I'd like to see that reflected and transferred over in terms of some actual opportunity for Indigimop here on the ground. Because unfortunately, a lot of the time that just doesn't translate to any sort of substantive sort of changes for people here anyway.
So growing up, there weren't many opportunities. What did you end up doing when you finished in school? How did it lead into the streets movement?
So basically, anyway, so I was pretty regular like everyone else. After school, you want to party and you want to run amok and you want to, live life, basically. So I was part of that crowd anyway. But boxing, I used to box quite a lot. I was a fighter for a while. But what happened is a very, very good man from up here. He gave his time, he gave his effort, he gave his all really for us. And he opened up a old garage, and not much in there, a couple of pumps sticking out of the floor, an old boxing room made out of some dingy ropes, and a couple of old bags set up, that look like they haven't been touched since the 1950s. But you've got that sort of stuff now. But what it gave us is a home. It gave us a bit of purpose. It gave us somewhere to be, and it really kept us on the right track, the right path. So not just for myself, but there was for a number of young men who really benefit from this place as well. A lot of young lads out of the community. Unfortunately, like all the good things seem to have to come to an end anyway. So when he had to move on for his family, they left a very big hole in the community. And unfortunately, a lot of my friends, some of them end up in a lot worse places than others. Some end up with drugs, others with alcohol. Some end up behind bars, and is what it is. But at the end of the day, I think that lack of opportunity, that lack of focus, and the lack of something to look forward to tomorrow, that really played a significant role in a lot of downfall there as well. So I decided one day to get up and do something about that, and that's how the idea of the Streets Movement was born. And that's our name even comes from that idea that that's where we were from. We were from that environment, so we wanted to stay true to that, and that's how we came up with our name.
And was there an aha moment when you realised, you had to do something?
Yeah, absolutely. My aha moment came as more of a kick in the backside, really, because my father at the time, he we were watching the show together, and he basically we were having a bit of a fight. I don't know what we were fighting about, probably something stupid, but we're having a bit of an argument. And he basically turned to me and said, well, what the hell have you done in your life? What have you done for anyone? What have you done for the community? What have you done for, why don't you go in and sit here and criticise and you're crying about all these situations, but you're not doing anything to make anything better. So I thought, I think I stormed off probably in a bit of a huff and a puff, but later on when I was having a shower, that's when my eureka moment basically hit, and I was like, what, he's right. What have I done? No, I haven't done anything. I sit back, I cry and I complain about the world, but I haven't done anything to actually help make it better. So it's too easy to criticize and it's so hard to create, right? So I get up and I thought, well, you know what? I don't know much at the time, but I knew that some of my brothers needed a place, and we needed something better. So went out from there and set up an organisation, and started to build a centre.
And why a centre? Obviously, you need to do something. Were you just playing to your strengths with the gym, or was there a strategic reason to set up a community centre, and have a gym there and run those programs?
Oh, I'd say more playing to the strengths at the start, because definitely, I never thought it would have had the impact that it did. I just wanted to get out and I just wanted to make another centre again. I just wanted to make another gym because unfortunately, when you know more people in jail than you do in university, I mean I think that's a bit of a sad indictment on the society we're in sometimes, and sometimes in the communities sometimes we're in. So we really wanted to change, I guess, some of these social situations, but just starting with what we know. I mean, at the end that I'm not a rocket scientist, I'm not a nanosurgeon, I'm not a biomechanical engineer or anything. So I just, I was a 18-year-old kid really, and all I really knew how to do was knew a little bit about boxing. I'm definitely not Manny Pacquiao, mate, when it comes to the ring, but I know enough. So yeah, got out there and and basically put in a bit of work, built a centre, and honestly, I thought maybe we'd have about 20 young guys come down and just 20 people from the community come down and maybe participate, and it'll just be like that brotherhood again, having somewhere to be and just providing a bit of community support where people need it. That's all. Just giving people other directions other than drugs or alcohol or anything like that. Just giving a place, good positive support, good mentorship around, and just a place with the brothers there to really pick you up if you're feeling down. But I'm not really sure how, but lo and behold, after about 7 years, there was over 10,000 people who walked through those doors, and it just grew from there. So what started as boxing quickly became music. It quickly became dance. It quickly became homework centre. It quickly became a place of there was people playing touch footy. There was programs set up for around helping with autism, helping with cognitive issues and things like that. Different people with their own health issues as well coming in. And at the end of the day, people would just come in just to give what knowledge or what ideas or what they had, what time they had, and just to give back in some way, shape, or form. And that's the success of it right there. It's that community involvement. It's definitely not something just attributed to myself or some of the other guys who are working there, but it's really attributed to, I guess, the goodwill and people within the community.
Just to follow on with that, obviously, it became a massive success. But when it was just starting out, how do you just go and, create a community centre? Where did you go and what were the challenges to get it all going?
Okay, so the biggest challenge you're always going to have is something called paperwork. And there's going to be a lot of that no matter what you do. So get your head around that first, and then everything else becomes easy. Yeah, paperwork, and more paperwork. But once you can start learning how to deal, honestly, I think once you can start learning how to deal with bureaucracy and government process, and I think everything else seems to become a lot easier. Obviously, there's things like that people don't tell you about setting up an organisation or managing these things. The people you have around you are so fundamentally important, because if you've got people who are dedicated and they're about the cause, they're about the idea, they believe in it. They're not just there for something to do, just for cuss or just for ha-has. They're there because they actually believe in this cause. They believe in making tomorrow better than today. That's what's important. You need to really surround yourself with the right people. And I think a lot of organisations, they do struggle when it comes to that kind of stuff. I mean, a lot of the times you've got you can have very passionate, very dedicated people, but that passion and dedication can start to wear off after a while. People start to worry more about, and which is life. People just get caught up in the game of life. You've got to worry about kids going to school. You got to worry about bills. You got to worry about rent. You got to worry about going to work. But in terms of making a substantive and real, lasting impact within that community, you need to be able to give something a bit more. And if you really want to make your organization successful, then you have to be able to willing to invest in your idea and invest in it with not just your money, but your time as well as your passion.
So was that key when you were starting out? Did you go and find those right people to begin with?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, to be honest, when I started, I had a few mates with me, and I said, you know what, at the time, this will be good, and your friends being your friends, they always they're willing to sign up for anything you're really looking to do. So that wasn't really hard. But as time has went on, obviously, the people who've come on board with our organisation, they genuinely believe in what we do, and they're passionate about it. It's inked into their hearts and their souls, and that's why we're able to go out now and make the impact we have in our community and really do what we do internationally. It's because these people believe in what we do. It's not just a job; it is a belief.
Yeah, that makes complete sense. And so to get up the community centre up and running, was it just lots of paperwork to get the funding?
Yeah, no. Well, look, there's a lot of obviously community engagement and community liaising first and foremost. There's a lot that goes into it, So paperwork's obviously one side of things. Trying to get the right stakeholders on board. And look, when I started, I had less than $1 in my pocket, so I definitely can't talk about being able to pay a couple of grand rent a week or anything like that for a decent facility or anything like that. So you've got to make do with what you can do at the time. So if that's going and talking to people who've maybe they've got a spare warehouse or a spare shed you can use or utilize, or go and talking to the local member, going to talking to the local council, people like that. You've got to be able to really get out there and spread your message, spread what you're trying to do, and try to attract and see those like-minded people. Going to universities is always a good start as well, because there's a lot of people out there who are very, very well connected. And even just going out and say, look, well, this is what I'm trying to do, and you'll eventually, you should always talk about the why you're doing things. It's not so much the what. People don't buy into what you're doing; they buy why you're doing it. So really get out there and sell why you're trying to do these things. Why do you want to make that impact, and really look at why you're trying to change the world. Why do you want to do these things every day? Why are you getting up in the morning? I mean, that's the big question. If you can understand that question, if you can understand the why of why you're doing it, then other people can too. And they're going to follow you, not because they're following, I think Simon Sinek said it probably best when he said, people don't follow you, they follow themselves. But if your ideals line up with what their ideals are, they follow that. So they're just following their hearts, they're following their passions. And then if you've got those mutual morals, values, and ethics, then you're going to move together somewhere very special.
Do you think, because you went to university, but did it really prepare you for, what you were doing, or do you just got to learn that out in the real world?
I think university gives you a set of skills, and it definitely gives you the writing skills anyway to be able to deal with a lot of things. But the real world, look, it's its own kettle of fish. You've got to get out there and you've got to learn from that. The real world is not so much like the uni world, really. Real world is much more harsh. It's much more brutal, and who is everything. It really is. I mean, networking. I could not stress that enough. I mean, who is, and forming real relationships. I'm not just talking about talking to people just for the sake of getting to know them. Actually, forming real, substantive relationships. I've seen there's a lot of networking things where people come into the room and exchange numbers and cards and things like that. But I'm talking about real networking where you actually get to know people. You learn about who they are on a deeper level. Because if you can find what are going back as well to where people's morals, their values, their ethics line up, and if they align with yours, then that's someone who is beneficial to your movement, to your cause as well, because you're moving forward together then, because what they believe is what you believe. I mean, that's great minds connecting like that, then that's where some real change can occur.
And you've had a few challenges in the past, like paperwork. What other challenges have you had along the way?
Oh, there's challenges every day. Every day you wake up, there's going to be a challenge. So, but some major ones. Obviously, things like funding is obviously always going to be a major challenge, no matter who you are. and particularly when you're just starting out, funding is going to be a major challenge because look, every day you've got to get up and you've got to go to work and you've got to make ends meet for yourself and for your family, and that's fair enough. But if you're going to invest in an organization or a company or an idea, then you need to be able to give that time. And obviously something's got to give. And a lot of the time you've got to end up sacrificing for that idea. In my particular case, I gave up my home at the time, and I lived out of a boxing ring for a couple of years. So I wouldn't recommend that on anyone, but it is what it is. It's not always it's not about what's possible or impossible. It's about what's necessary. You have to do what's necessary to get forward. I mean, sometimes that requires some incredibly tough decisions and incredibly tough sacrifices. You're not always going to be eating steak for dinner every night. Sometimes you might go without dinner, but it is what it is. If you can suffer enough, if you can fight for it hard enough, if you believe in it enough, and if you can put that work in, then by all means, the world is yours.
So entrepreneurship in business isn't like, what people see in the movies. It's not all glory and making millions of dollars.
No. I'm sure that's an end result. And, that's a very important part of it too, because to have any sort of substantive impact in society now, it's all about having a strong economic base. And we as Indigmob are no different to that either. We're not excluded from that at all. I mean, the world over, it's run by money. And at the end of the day, if we're left behind on that, then we are being left behind. So we need to be mindful of that. We need to walk into that space just as strong as anyone else around the world. I think once we build our own economy, then we can start taking charge of our own affairs. Because while we're relying and hinging on other forms of funding coming from other services, whether they be government or other sort of enterprises, then we're always, I'm not going to say subservient, but we're always at the whim, basically, of those higher powers. So we really need to find that place of economic prosperity, our own economic development, because that is really what's going to drive change. With that, we can, and like I said at the start, it's like having a car, mate. Like, you can have the flashiest car in the world, but without any fuel in it, and that's exactly what those dollars in the bank are, mate. It's fuel to get started. It's fuel to keep going.
So true, yeah. I think everybody knows money isn't everything, but in this, day and age, it helps to have money there to buy food and everything. So.
Absolutely, and also, it's part of our community development strategy. I mean, if you look at any other, other major countries and cultures around the world, if you look at China, if you look at, the Emirates as well, I mean, I think they're great examples of nations that have really invested within themselves. And I've had the honor of, going over to these places, having conversations with these people, and people within positions of power. And after those conversations, you ask, well, how did you get here and why are you so strong? And every time they'll relate that back to culture, because they'll hold culture at the center of everything they do. And then from there, everything else can grow and prosper. So, I mean, we've already got that as Indigenous people. We've got one of the strongest cultures, if not one of the strongest cultures in the world, the oldest culture in the world. So that's something to build on. I mean, that's something our ancestors held very, very dearly. And that's something we hold very, very dearly today. So it's about adapting to our modern world now. We're the longest reigning culture in the world, not because we've stayed the same for 65,000 years. It's because we've been able to adapt to everything in front of us, just like evolution. Evolution's all about adaptation. We've been the best. We've been the best on the planet about adaptation. So this is just another, I guess, hurdle or obstacle in our way that we're going to adapt to, we're going to overcome, and we're not just going to survive, but we're going to thrive.
In culture, obviously, for you, it's a massive advantage in business.
Absolutely, culture is everything because it's guiding morals. It's a value system. I mean, you don't go out to make money just for the sake of making money. Making money is a result. It's an outcome, but it's not the reason you get up in the morning. It's not the reason you do anything. It's not the reason you go to work. And if it is, then I mean, maybe you should go out and start looking for a new dream, mate. So. I mean, because money is money at the end of the day. Don't get me wrong, everyone needs money and everyone wants more of it, but at the end of the day, it's because we need it for what's really important, whether it's, putting clothes on our kids' back, whether it's putting food in our stomachs, whether it's putting roofs over our family's head or whatever it is, or making our community a better place. But it's, like I said, it's a result of something of hard work, and we use that resource to make our lives and make our families' lives and make our communities' lives a better place.
And you guys have had over 10,000 people involved in your programs. What have been some of the other big successes along the way?
Yeah, sometimes it's a bit hard with these sort of questions sometimes, because after a while, a lot of things start to become a bit of a blur.
You're not that old.
I keep telling myself that too. Having people partake in programs and having people partake in these sort of things, sending, students overseas internationally and getting, having international engagement with places like, with China or whatever it's the Emirates, the United Kingdom, the United States, and working with some of the, some fantastic institutions around the world has been absolutely incredible. But honestly, the thing I think that stands out for me is seeing individuals within our communities actually stand up who would never have thought that they would have gone out of their way to be running a class or to have set up their own org or to go out and want to make their community a better place. But they're out there every day now, standing up and doing more and reaching out and using what skills and what knowledge they have to make a difference, simply because they were able to walk into a centre like this one or into one of these community initiatives and programs and go out and make an impact. I mean, I think that's what sticks in my head more than anything. So we've just started a new program even with the Maloomalong International Scholar Initiative, and we've had 5 young Indigenous students go over to Cambridge and Oxford for a period of time there. And we're staying now with them, like, it's not so much them going over. Yeah, them going over there is a fantastic thing, and they get to experience what some of the most prestigious academic institutions in the world, and they get to learn from the international community and et cetera, et cetera. But what's going to be a big standout for me, I guess, is when they come back home, when they return home, what do they do with that knowledge and how do they give that back and how do they make their communities a better place one day? Because that's what it's all about. It's about paying it forward, and that's how we're going to progress.
Awesome. Do you think those types of programs are helping break stereotypes?
Yeah, absolutely. And look, there's far too many stereotypes that run around because we're black fellas, at the end of the day. It's about breaking those stereotypes. It's about breaking those paradigms and creating a new narrative that we write ourselves, that no one else has written for us. I mean, unfortunately, with colonization and with, here, now's a perfect time in the country maybe to be start talking about these sort of conversations. All you've got to do, I think, is go on social media and read some of the comments, the vile and disgusting comments, I'll say, Indigenous people and all, I guess, a lot of people, I don't want to say majority of people, but, there's a lot of people on social media, I'll see a comment anyway, so I'm sure that hopefully maybe that's just an echo chamber and hopefully it's not a greater reflection of broader society, but, there's very distasteful, very, very hurtful comments, and it doesn't help us move forward. It doesn't help us become better as a nation. It doesn't help us move forward as people either. So, and I think at the end of the day, when unfortunately, if you tell people they are something for long enough, that if you're garbage or you're an alcoholic or you're a drug addict or you're a criminal or you're worthless for long enough, unfortunately, some people start to believe these things. And I think that's what we've got to avoid. I mean, our people, we're kings and queens in our country. Unfortunately, I think along the way, some of us have forgotten that. And we need to remember that, and we need to stand up, and we need to take back what's ours. We need to take back that dignity and that respect back first and foremost.
So despite the criticism, how do you stay positive and continue the good work you're doing at the Streets Movement organisation?
Oh, well, look, and even in terms of that, and look, in terms of the word, even charity is saying there, as well, like, the whole idea here is to build not just a charity, because you've got your charitable mission, you've got your mission, you've got your goal, you've got your vision, but it's about building strong and successful businesses around that enterprise, because at the end of the day, they're going to be out there not just they're going to be out there funding your communities, they're going to be out there funding your initiative, So, and even though governments run off 3-year cycles, you can always be sure that your vision for your community is going to keep on going no matter what happens. So, yeah, I think that's important. But in relation to the first part of your question there, staying positive, that's $1 million question, mate. It's everyone's got their own techniques, honestly. Look, for me, I've got a very supportive partner. I've got a beautiful daughter. I can come home at the end of every day and I walk back into a great world like that. It hasn't always been like that. Obviously, I've had times, before, prior to all that life, and you go through depression, you go through your own mental battles and struggles, and obviously being homeless at the time, it's definitely not a good thing. But you remember why you're doing it, because nothing good comes easy. Sometimes you have to suffer, but that suffering isn't there to make you weak, it's there to make you stronger. But if you can remember that, and if you can fight through those hard times, then when you come out the other side, there truly is nothing that can stop you. You need to stay strong. You might stumble, you might fall, but it don't mean you're going to give up.
And previously you mentioned that you went over to China. Why did you go over there?
So TSM, we just recently went over to China to engage over there with a number of universities, which was a great experience. But at the end of the day, China is Australia's largest trading partner. It's a future superpower of the world. We'd be absolutely insane not to get on board with that as well, and recognise that that's the world we're living in as well these days. So we've set up basically a cross-cultural exchange initiative as well, because there's so much we can learn from each other, and that's where it starts, and that's where that business starts. It's about that shared learning experience, that shared sharing culture, sharing that dialogue, and starting a narrative around that sort of equation there. From there, we can start to foster a business environment, and from there, we can actually start to foster greater economic ties and relations. But it's got to start somewhere, and culture is our starting point, because they're very strong culturally. They're very, very strong people, but so are we, and then that's something we have in common. That's something we can share together. From that place, we can move forward together, and then from there, we've got a number of business interests that obviously we can walk forward into and look to progress with.
How did that come about, that opportunity? Was it just, like you said earlier, just knocking down doors, just trying to make things happen to become financially sustainable?
Oh, absolutely. Look, well, we're engaged with, we're a national partner now with Grant Thornton as well as a number of other organisations as well, coming online as well in that regard. But you use your networks, and this like I said, comes back to just utilising the people and formed a decent relationship with. So I'm fortunate enough to be connected with the universities now, a number of universities up and down the East Coast, and but connecting with who and talk to someone who knows someone who knows someone who knows someone who knows someone, and then you just make these things happen. It's about being able to sit the right people in the right room at the right time. That's all it is.
Awesome. And do you have any other thoughts or advice you would like to share with the Indigipreneurs listening?
Just got to get outside that comfort zone, because a lot of people might be like, "Oh, I'm ashamed to go talk," or "I don't want to." No, I feel a bit nervous, or a bit intimidated. But honestly, it's just about massaging the conversation in the right way, and just putting it out there, putting it on the line, and say, "Look, this is what I'm doing, and this is where I'm going, and this is why I'm doing it." People buy into why you're doing things. They don't buy what you're doing; they buy why you do it. And I think at the end of the day, if you can convince people that your why is a worthy enough cause to get behind, they will get behind you. They will stand up with you, and they will want to walk forward with you. So it's not as difficult as it seems. It's just like I guess it's just like sometimes diving off the high dive. Sometimes you just got to take a bit of a leap.
And has there been any instance when you've, done that before, just go out, talking to people, maybe government agencies, and they've kind of tried to take your idea and run with it and do it themselves?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, government sometimes, they think they can do all these things, but there's one critical factor that I guess we as community orgs as well, and organisations that work exclusively on that street level, is we do have an ear to the street. And if you try to put some generic model over the top of over a community, it just doesn't work. And unfortunately, that's the approach governments seem to take a lot of the time, because they do have so many communities to worry about. They've got entire countries to worry about. So having a blanket approach just seems like the most, I guess, rational and bureaucratically effective step for them to take. Unfortunately, in reality, it doesn't work like that. So liaising and working with community partners is absolutely fundamental to receiving any sort of beneficial outcome. I'll say that.
Definitely. And I was just scrolling on LinkedIn, and there was a sponsored Prime Minister in Cabinet ad that was looking for advice, feedback on, what's gone right and what's gone wrong with the Indigenous advancement strategy. Have you got any advice that you could share to them on here?
Yeah, I guess he could, what was the Uluru statement, right? I mean, what did they do? They just dismissed that on national, they just dismissed that and straight away as soon as it was announced, right? So, I mean, I guess the easiest thing to say to them would be actually to start listening to Indigenous people. That'd be a good one. So, yeah.
Seems easy enough.
It sounds easy enough, mate, but it's hard to fill a cup that's already full, right, mate? So yeah.
Gold. And obviously, the streets movement, amazing work in community. You're probably going into your next stage of growth now. What's on the horizon? Where you guys heading? And what can we expect in the future?
So where we're heading now is we've got a number of centres coming online, which has been fantastic. We're spreading around the Mallumalong initiative. It's going into Northern Territory and Western Australia this year as well. So we've also opened up opportunities now into Singapore and China. So we'll be sending more Indigenous students from here over to those particular countries, along with the United Kingdom, just for more of that cultural and academic exchange, and just building greater links, greater pathways, and starting to foster that sort of relationship anyway between our countries and between our peoples. From there as well, so obviously we're looking at more of an economic development strategy for our mob as well. So particularly around being in our headquarters being in Cairns, we want to make sure that we're heavily involved in the tourism market as well, because I mean, you've got a lot of tourism companies up here, but very, 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 very few are Indigenous. I think you're probably looking at maybe 1 or 2%. So we really want to start changing those paradigms. I mean, it's good enough that we go out and they hire us to do all their dancing and all their cultural engagement stuff. They pay us a little bit of pittance to shake a leg for 20 minutes, mate, but that's it. We want to make sure it's something more substantial than that. I mean, if they're selling our culture and if they're utilizing our 65,000 years of heritage, that we want to make sure that we've got a seat at that table, and then we own these companies. We're not working just for these companies. We own these companies. So we're in that economic development space now, where we've got a number of enterprises being set up, and from there we'll just take it as it comes and look to make more of an impact.
That makes complete sense, because up there, obviously, massive Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander community, but like you just mentioned, most of the businesses up there aren't Indigenous owned, or the benefits aren't going back into communities.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, and that's a real shame. But look, this is a capitalist economy, and we are part of that community as well, just like the rest of the world is. So it's time we adapt it again. We are the best in the world at that. Like I said before, we're going to adapt. We're not just going to survive. We're going to thrive, and we're going to take that back. And then we're going to start changing that paradigm, and we're going to change the narrative around how things work, and then we can really ensure that we have a substantive and decent say at the table from now on. Rather than being dictated to, then we can start dictating some terms.
Like, obviously, you've been around all these big countries and, hardcore venture capitalists. Do you think, we should be like them, or obviously, maybe we can, teach them, really how to, make money, but also have an impact?
Oh, absolutely. Look, we've always got something to share with other people around the world. But honestly, what they do in their country is their business, and that's their that's their prerogative, I guess, at the end of the day. But what we do in our country and what we do with our time and with our resources and with our efforts, I think that should be our primary concern. But in saying that, that definitely doesn't mean we can't learn from each other. And it definitely doesn't mean we can't, we shouldn't be working with each other. We definitely should be opening our borders in that respect and be working with international partners. And from there, we can make much, much, much more substantive impact. I mean, we as Indigimob have so much to offer, and I think we undersell ourselves at a lot of the times. But if we can go out and we can utilize our experiences, our knowledge, and our connection on the ground, I mean, there's no telling what we can't do. I mean, there's a big wide world out there, and we're 2.9, I think, percent of the population in this country. We're a minority within this country, but in saying that, we've got the potential. We've got the potential to make such a tremendous impact. So, I'm working towards that day anyway. When my mob anyway, I can see that when they're cruising down the street and people don't immediately associate being a black fella with something negative, but rather something positive, rather than just thinking about black fellas being they're just drunks or they're just criminals. They'll be seeing them rolling by in a maybe they see them rolling by in a Lamborghini, mate, or something like that.
They could learn something.
No, exactly. And it's to be Aboriginal is to be successful. To be Torres Strait Island is to be successful. To be black is something to be proud of. It's not something that's derogatory. It's not something that's negative. It's something that we should be holding up high and being, well, you know what? I am proud of this. I am proud of who we are, but I'm so proud of where we are going, because where we're at now isn't good enough, but where we're going will be.
So true. Where we're at the moment definitely isn't good enough. So do you think the Indigipreneurs out there have to be the example, have to make things happen?
Yeah, absolutely. We've got to get out there, and you know what? Like, we've got to set the example now, though. We've got to set the bar. We've got to go out and actually be that change we want to see in the world. I mean, it's no point in us, sitting back every day and talking about change and talking about we should be doing this and that and the other. My father always used to talk about there's the largest group of blackfellas in this country, mate. It's called the Could Have Been tribe. There could have been this, could have been that, and could have been whatever. We all know someone from the Could Have Been tribe, Russ. So we all know someone from that tribe. But it's not about being part of the Could Have Beens anymore, man. We've got to be part of that. We've done it. We've been there, done that. I came, I saw, I conquered. We need to be part of that now. We need to start recognizing ourselves and taking that value from ourselves and start believing in what we can do. I mean, I can't believe that there's never been an Aboriginal billionaire. I can't believe that we've never had an Aboriginal who's why can't we start talking about an Aboriginal Prime Minister? Why can't we start talking about an Aboriginal going in, or Torres Strait Islander going into space and doing this sort of work? Why can't we start talking about these sort of things? We always talk about them being great rugby league players or AFL players or conquering the sporting world, but in terms of actually advancing humanity, why aren't we putting our people up in that regard?
I'd hit a massive point, yeah. Like you said, really good at sports, which is great. Good on the successful people that have made it there. They've done really well and gave back. But yeah, what about like the other ones, like you said, science and
exactly.
in business,
science, technology, business. There's so many more worlds out there that we haven't delved into nearly enough yet. We're talented people. We're very smart people, but we need that opportunity, and we need to seize. Importantly, and very importantly, we need to seize on that opportunity.
And to do that, we just need people just to get out there and do it. Like you're saying, just get out there and make things happen.
Absolutely. Hardest step, 90% of the battle is walking through the door. Taking a start. Because, we all know mob, we're out there crying about the world, talking about what's wrong. But at the end of the day, unless you're getting up and you're making a change for it, you're part of the problem too.
Actually, I noticed that, yeah. And where I come from, my community sometimes, it's some of those people, who are nice people, but sometimes they're very toxic to everybody else. Negativity and violence wise, and it kind of brings everybody else down. But I guess you got to be the example and get out there, make it happen, and don't let the stereotypes or people bring you down affect you.
Absolutely. Now you got to be the change you want to see in the world. If you see yourself as if you see yourself as as nothing, then that's all you'll ever be. If you see yourself as you are great, you are powerful, you are strong, that's exactly what you are, and you will go out and you will change this world.
Please share with friends or connect on social media at Indigipreneur, where you can find more episodes like this. Are you a young Indigipreneur? If yes, come along to our First Nations Youth Summit, which will be hosted in Brisbane on the 28th to 29th of June. It's an opportunity to connect with other First Nations youth, create new professional networks, and learn new skills you can take back to your community. For more information, please go to the website at firstnationsyouthsummit.com. This episode was brought to you by Vasudhara Foundation. The Vasudhara Foundation supports social entrepreneurs to build creative and innovative projects that deliver positive social impact. In addition to their philanthropic work, they manage private investment portfolio which generates the resources to fund these social projects they love to work on. Feel free to get in contact with them at contact@vasudhara.org or visit their website www.vasudhara.org.